Formula One has arrived to Singapore ready for the Grand Prix, but unfortunately, the expected protest that we were going to be seeing towards Red Bull has now officially come true. Last week, we found out that there were multiple teams that were very much suspicious over Red Bull and their power unit. When Noah James and Mason Woods broke into the Ford team factory and stole pieces of engine data and handed it over to Red Bull, a lot of the teams were wondering whether Red Bull had actually used any of that data to help create a better power unit. Furthermore, there was no official confirmation that the FIA had seized that data, and it's quite clear that teams really want to get on top of this, and now it is officially becoming a thing. Ferrari, McLaren and Porsche have all launched a protest against Red Bull. These teams want full clarification whether Red Bull's engines are in fact illegal or if they have in fact used any of the designs from the Ford power unit. Surprisingly, the team that's not actually currently involved in this protest is the team in which the engine data plans got stolen from, and that's Ford. We haven't actually had any confirmation on what Ford thinks of this yet, but it's very surprising to see that they're not one of the teams that's leading the protest charge, as of course, well, this is their power unit that they're talking about here, unless they've got something to hide as well. The FIA have said that their investigations are now underway to try and find if the Red Bull engine is indeed legal or not. There were other teams as well that were interested in getting behind this protest, but for the time being, they've stayed out of the way. Now, there's nothing to say that these teams can go ahead and protest, despite the fact that they've stayed out of the way, but for the time being, it is currently only Ferrari, McLaren and Porsche that have put their names down to protest against Red Bull's power unit. So we'll have to find out in the coming weeks what the FIA concludes from the investigation over Red Bull and their power unit. Taking a look at the race news heading into this weekend, and it was Renault, specifically Tom, that was the fastest man in practice. Tom dominated the Friday sessions and even Saturday morning, and he went fastest in all three practice sessions. Now, this is very much a worry for many of his rival teams. Of course, Tom has had a habit of dominating the Singapore Grand Prix, and teams fear that Tom could be going down the same route again. There's something about Singapore and Tom that just seems to work, and it's something that all the teams are going to be trying to find out. One team that's trying to find out something about their car is Audi, not specifically their car, but their tyres. Audi is struggling with their soft tyres. They're struggling to get them to work, and of course, they're also struggling with degradation, as is every single team. The soft tyres just don't seem to be lasting that long, and it's something that teams are going to have to bear in mind moving forwards. Mercedes, though, are a team that are quietly confident that they have a car that is capable of winning this race. Mercedes seem to be having a car at the moment that is very strong in qualifying and then drops off a little bit within the race. Of course, around Singapore being so hard to overtake, this might actually go in Mercedes' favour, and it's something that they're playing up with a lot of expectation. So let's find out then, can Tom keep his form coming here at Singapore, or will the other rival teams have something up their sleeve to stop him? Yo, what's going on guys, it's Foxydude here, welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 Journey. We are back for another round. It is round number 3 of season number 9. If you haven't enjoyed today's video, feel free to drop it a like if you do end up enjoying the video. And if you're new around here and you are enjoying the content you do see, feel free to subscribe, as it really does help out the channel. But we go from our weakest track on the calendar last time around at Japan to our strongest track here at Singapore. Track I absolutely love, not only in the game but also in real life, having the pleasure to visit this circuit. So we go ahead on our first flying lap, and we actually go fastest with a 127.484, really putting down the benchmark. You see the likes of Sam there setting his lap time. No one really actually getting close to that. On our final flying lap here, we're going to try and beat that if we possibly can. We're currently a 10th down though on our fastest lap, but we are still on for a provisional pole. But we get a great run out of the chicane, but unfortunately we went way too wide into the final exit of that chicane. To cross the line though, it is still pole position. So here we are then, for the first time this season in the F1 Journey, we are starting from pole position, and as per usual at the Singapore Grand Prix, it's a 2-stop race, and we're going to put the car bang on the level of fuel that we need to get to the end. As you can see, running a little bit more downforce for this weekend. So let's get this race underway then, and hopefully we can have a good round here to come as we go to the grid now. 5 red lights here for the start of the Singapore Grand Prix, and it's lights out and away we go, and it's a very nice start from us. A beautiful start there. Sam's got a great start in 3rd place. We're going to tuck ourselves in towards the first few corners here, navigating our way through. De Vries and Sam having a little bit of a scrap, but eventually they clear each other's pathways, and we are through, and we're leading the Singapore Grand Prix as we now go through into the straight and now down the back straight here towards Raffles Boulevard. Just a little cheeky note in there, a bit of the track that I've actually walked IRL, you know what I'm just saying? As we go in towards Raffles Boulevard though, as you can see, purple for the first sector, 1.1 seconds clear already of Nick De Vries. It's a brilliant start there, of course. De Vries and Sam, though, were battling into the first corner. I'm sure we'll get a replay of that as they go through that specific section of the circuit very soon. But the crucial stage now for this race is going to be getting away from the rest of the pack. Of course, we're on a two-stop strategy in this race, soft, medium to medium. Now, most of the top 10 will be on that strategy, but everybody else below that are going to be on the medium compound tyres. They'll go medium to hards, and this is one of those races where strategy is absolutely key because the two-stop runners are going to get intertwined with the one-stoppers. Now, traditionally, the AIs are going to struggle more than we will because, of course, they do not go for overtaking moves that obviously us as the player can go for. So, we need to make sure that we pull away as much as we can because we're only going to be on these tyres for about 6 laps or so before we actually make the swap to medium compound tyres. But as you can see, it's been a fantastic opening lap here, and this final sector is where we're absolutely rapid, and you can see that as the gap just continues to increase round the final corner to cross the start-finish line. The gap is 1.6 seconds by the end of the first lap. It's been a dream start to the Singapore Grand Prix. That is what we wanted. Let's have a look though at the start. 5 red lights go out and we are underway. It's a clean start from us. It wasn't a clean start for De Vries, but actually he managed to hold on in there surprisingly, despite the fact he had a poor start, but it was 3 wide there into the first corner. But for us, nice and clean, nice and easy. We can get away with it and Prix off into the distance. Sam, meanwhile, got a better start than De Vries. He actually got one of the best starts out there. You can see he's closing up on me into turn 1, but De Vries breaks very late into turn 1. Actually just leaves Sam out to dry. Gives him no space whatsoever. But there's a reason that he left him no space whatsoever, and that's because of this man, Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton also got a great start here, but he couldn't quite get down the middle of De Vries and Sam. So Hamilton then dives up the inside of De Vries, pretty much taking the inside line apex, meaning that De Vries has got to cover off that line, and he's got to go wider. That forces Sam out wide, so De Vries got lucky. Lap 6 of the Grand Prix though, and the gap is massive now. The gap is 10 seconds between myself and Lewis Hamilton. Now, De Vries was the man that was currently in a net P2. He actually pitted a lap earlier than what we're doing right now, but De Vries was very much holding up the pack of cars. It was quite clear that the rest of the drivers had some good pace, but they weren't able to pass De Vries, so Nick was very much helping me in that stint, and it just meant that I was able to just carry on with my own race, and we're eventually now going to go on to set the medium compound tyres. But as you can see, there are a lot of drivers passing it down the start-finish rate here, so some of them are going to be pitting at the end of next lap, but a lot of them are on the medium tyres and are going to go long, so it's going to mean we've got to do a little bit of passing here. One of them is going to be the Porsche car. I think that was Carlos Sainz that's directly in front of us. It is Carlos Sainz that's directly in front of us, but he's actually on the soft tyres, so interestingly, some of the back markers then are not taking advantage of the one-stop strategy here, but we're now, unfortunately, in a bit of a tricky position. Gap between ourselves and De Vries, 6.8 seconds now. We've got Carlos Sainz in front of us, going to constantly hold us up for this entire section of the circuit, so we're going to set ourselves up here, get a fantastic run through here, open up the ERS ever so slightly, fake to the outside line. It's a bold, it's a brave, but it's a beautiful move there, around the outside of Carlos Sainz, underneath the grandstand there. That's a fabulous overtake there, and we can press on with our Grand Prix. But as you can see though, we've already lost half a second in this sector to De Vries, and that was just by battling one driver. And now we're on to the next one here of Callum Ilott, but he's actually not going to be a problem for us because he's actually going to pit. We actually tapped the wall there, I didn't even realise that. We tapped the wall there. Ilott comes into the pits, so too does Lando Norris in the Jaguar. That leaves us with an Aston Martin 1-2 of Oscar Piastri and Theo Porcher as we now go down in towards turns 1, 2 and 3, and we're closing up to the back of Theo here, and we're going to try and use a little bit of that ERS, but crucially we're just going to set him up for the back straight. That's what we want to be doing here. We get a great run through there. The tyres are absolutely fresh, and for Porcher, he's in a much weaker car, and as you can see, we just breeze through there and right past Theo Porcher, and we're up now into second place. We've got one more car to overtake. Surprisingly, not as many drivers going for the alternate strats as I would have thought, and not many people have done it, and I honestly thought a lot more would, but unfortunately for them that's not the case. For me, it just means I've got less cars to pass. Next up is Oscar Piastri, and Piastri there, not a great run for the last corner, and that means now he's disadvantaged, and I don't even need to, it almost looks like a blue flags overtake there, to be honest, but we go round the outside into the first corner, and we are ahead of Piastri. We're back into the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix, and we can continue to control things really, because De Vries is now 7.9 seconds back, and Sam can't find a way through
which is great because it means that I just keep position. Lap 12 of the Grand Prix though, it's a little bit of a team order swap here. It's the two Aston Martins making a swap. Theo Porcher goes around the outside of Oscar Piastri. Unfortunately for Piastri, he has actually got a mechanical problem because that's why he got past. You can see there that Porcher is getting in front of him, and now Piastri comes into the pits here. It's a little bit wide from De Vries. Sam just about sneaks his way through there on Nick De Vries down the straight. It's 3 wide now between De Vries, Reese, and also Lewis Hamilton into the first corner now. This is going to get very tight. There's contact made. I hope there's no front wing damage for any of those cars, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them maybe just a little bit of damage there to one of their front wings. They got oh so close into the first corner. Perez now is onto the back of Reese here, side by side, as they go onto the back straight here, down towards Raffles Boulevard here. Reese will have DRS to try and hold this one. Perez goes from attack to defense now. Mick Schumacher's going to get involved in this scrap here as they go around the outside now into Raffles. Who's going to come out on top? Will it be Schumacher or will it be Perez here? As unfortunately for Mick Schumacher, it's Sergio Perez that comes out on top, but we've got Sam there coming into the pits. We've got Reese as well coming into the pits, so both of them then have had car trouble in this Grand Prix. We saw them make contact. We've got a 3 wide moment here between Sergio Perez, Ricciardo and Schumacher going 3 wide into the first corner. That was really close there, but we saw them. Who was it? Sam and Reese there. Both made contact on the last lap, and it was true, they did get front wing damage. So 2 of the big championship rivals pretty much going to be in this season are, well, in the pits. Well, I say pretty much for this season, depends on how their car development goes. As we've got Schumacher going around the outside of Sergio Perez, concentrating on the action a little bit more on things. Ricciardo has managed to defend his position against Charles Leclerc, but Perez now is really going for it here against Mick Schumacher as they go round in towards the middle sector here, up towards the Padang Grandstand, and where the former Singapore Sling used to be. It's not there anymore though, it's just a simple left-hander as they go round it now. Schumacher is around the outside here of Perez, but Perez doing a great job to hold off Schumacher, and he's done it. Fair play to Sergio Perez. He defends against Mick Schumacher in a beautiful line of defence there. Lap 14 of the Grand Prix, as I was saying, Sam and Reese had to pit another time after front wing damage, and unfortunately, then out the back, they've gone to a set of the soft compound tyres. A very strange way to go in this Grand Prix because that means they've got to stop again. So that's even worse for them. But leading to that, Reese goes around the outside there of Theo Porcher. Now Sam is on the back of Oscar Piastri. Round towards Raffles Boulevard they go, and Sam gets the move done. Quite easy one, DRS. The 2 Aston Martins are on a set, the hard tyres as well. That's kind of a run and done type thing. Now, lap 18 of the Grand Prix, we are back on board with ourselves here, and we're coming into the pits for our second stop in this race. We're pretty much controlling it out front. We tend to do that around Singapore. It's just a Singapore thing. But we're coming into the pits now. We're going to go on to another set of the medium compound tyres, take them to the end of the race, and those medium tyres fit absolutely nicely to my black and yellow car. So we'll take that. As we come out of the pits now from the second stop here, we shouldn't actually have a single driver to worry about. So we're coming out of the pits right now. Nobody to be concerned by as we go through in towards the first corner, apart from a flashing red Ferrari there. That is Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton was in second in this Grand Prix. He's now in the lead, but Hamilton has to stop again. So maybe we can have a little bit of a scrap with Hamilton. Speaking of having a scrap with Hamilton, here he is then. So in towards the second to last chicane now. We're going to set him up here for a run with DRS, but Hamilton goes into the pits and the excitement completely dwells because there is no attack to go on with. I just have DRS, but at least it gives me an advantage to go to set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, which is what I'll end up doing. Lap 21 of the Grand Prix, here's a little bit wide there from Charles Leclerc into the second to last corner. That's going to allow Sergio Perez here to get a run and down the straight. Doesn't quite have the speed. Leclerc's actually got DRS there because he got it off of the drive that was coming into the pits. I'm not sure who it was, but that's actually allowed Perez to stay behind here, but not for too much longer because Daniel Ricciardo here fancies a run on Sergio Perez as they make their way down in towards turn 4. Now onto the straight towards Raffles Boulevard they go. It's going to be a drag race now. Both of them are going to have DRS here, but that Red Bull is faster than a Mercedes in a straight line. So let's see if they can make it sick. But Ricciardo has gone from attack to defense here because Pato O'Ward fancies a run here down the inside of Daniel Ricciardo, having to defend against his former team now. Of course, Ricciardo left McLaren to come to Red Bull, and O'Ward took Ricciardo's seat, and O'Ward takes Ricciardo's place on the racetrack and goes up another position as we move on to lap 24 of the Grand Prix. On board myself here, you can see we are 28 seconds now clear of Lewis Hamilton, pretty much just cruising this Grand Prix, but that doesn't mean that I can't be nice. Unfortunately, I've been a quite naughty boy, and that's the 3 second time penalty coming my way for track limits all of them coming at the exact same corner throughout the race. So even though I'm cruising and controlling it out front, you see on lap 31 of the Grand Prix, my biggest concern actually in the second phase of the race was my fuel. My fuel was actually a lot lower than I thought it was. You can see it's currently in the red at the moment. The gap was 28 seconds. Hamilton's dropped that back down to 21 seconds now, but I backed off for the final 2 laps, really getting the fuel under control, but everything else was way under control on my end as we go round the second to last corner, now the final corner to cross the line. We dominate here in Singapore and we won
the Singapore Grand Prix, and we have finally kicked off our season here in the F1 journey. And let's have a look then at the full race classification and see how everybody got on. So as you can see, we took the victory here at the Singapore Grand Prix, and it was by quite some distance. Lewis Hamilton finishes in second for Ferrari. He did end up closing the gap in the end, but of course, as I said, towards the end of the Grand Prix, we were saving fuel as we definitely had an issue with fuel. And Hamilton dropped that gap down to 17 seconds. Finishing in third was his teammate Mick Schumacher. A brilliant day for Ferrari in terms of the constructors, with Charles Leclerc finishing in P4 for Audi, 38 seconds off the end, just ahead of Sergio Perez, who was 4/10 back. And Pato O'Ward was right in there as well. He was 39 seconds off the pace in the end, with Daniel Ricciardo finishing in 7th for Red Bull. Lando Norris leads his teammate Verstappen to the line, 8th and 9th for the 2 Jaguar drivers, with George Russell picking up the final point for Audi. Now looking at the second half of the table, it was Stoffel Van Dorn that came across the line in P11, very close to getting some points. Callum Ilott finishes in 12th for the second Ford car. Valtteri Bottas finishes 13th for Porsche with 59.9 seconds off the lead there. Unfortunately, it was a bad race for Sam and also Reese, the two of them both suffering with front wing damage during the race, having to make another pit stop, and here in Singapore that literally ends your Grand Prix. So they both finished 14th and 15th outside of the points. Piastri finishes in 16th for the Aston Martin with a 1 minute 12.254 deficit. De Vries was another man that also suffered from some front wing damage. He was also very much in the fight. If you remember, in the entirety of the first stint, he was running in second place, and he was the reason why we were able to build such a gap. But he obviously also had his own problems in there. Carlos Sainz finishes in 18th place for Porsche, with Theo Pourchaire in 19th. Unfortunately, the only driver to DNF from this race was my teammate Pierre Gasly. Bit of a shame there. The fastest lap went to myself with a 1 minute 29.915. But how does that affect things in terms of the Drivers' Championship? Well, that has actually put us top of the championship, with Sam not scoring for the first time, actually. Sorry, I was about to say the second time. It's Reese that's not scored twice this season now. We're top of the championship, 48 points now to our name, and it's been a very consistent and strong start now to this season. Sam is second in the championship with 41 points. The gap is 7 points now at the top of the championship. Lewis Hamilton is third in the championship with 34 points to his name. He is level on points with Daniel Ricciardo, who is also on 34 points. Sergio Perez is fifth in the championship with 32 points. Reese is sixth with 26 points. Charles Leclerc is 7th for Audi on 24 points, with Mick Schumacher 8th in the championship, currently on 15 points. Pato O'Ward is 9th in the championship with 14 points, and Gasly is 10th in the championship with just 12 points to his name. Looking at the Constructors' Championship now, it is Red Bull that still lead the way at the top of the Constructors' Championship. They've got 75 points, and although it wasn't a good race weekend for them, they had just enough of a lead ahead to stay there heading into the next round of the season. Ferrari jumped to second in the championship, where they're on 64 points now, and they have moved in front of Renault, Mercedes and McLaren. Speaking of Renault, they are third in the championship, 60 points. No moves for them in the championship. They stay where they are. They've just jumped in front of Mercedes, but gone behind Ferrari. Mercedes are fourth in the championship with 46 points to their name. McLaren currently fifth in the Constructors with 40 points. A bit of a difficult start so far for McLaren. Hopefully they can try and rectify that in the next few races. Audi is sixth in the championship with 26 points and are starting to turn into the Mercedes of last season. Mercedes were very much, they're actually seventh in the championship at the time, but they were very much in their lonely little bubble, and they're starting to get that now. 14 points behind McLaren, but comfortably ahead of Jaguar. Speaking of Jaguar, they've got in front of Aston Martin. They now have 8 points to their name. Aston Martin solely sitting on those 2 points. Ford and Porsche are still yet to get on the board with their points tally. But that is it for the Singapore Grand Prix. Let's get straight into the post-race notebook and see what the teams and drivers have to say after the Singapore Grand Prix. Taking a look at the post-race notebook, and Tom takes his first win of the season, and he took it in style, dominating the Singapore Grand Prix to win ahead of both of the Ferrari cars who got themselves onto the podium. Lewis Hamilton finishing in second, with Mick Schumacher finishing in third place. Ferrari were really pleased to get a double podium with the team, and they believe that their car is only going to get stronger, and hopefully they can go ahead and push the other rival teams all the way to the final race. Stoffel Vandoorne was gutted to miss out on the points for Ford. He finished in P11, Callum Ilott was in P12, and it was an opportunity for Ford to get some points on the board, but unfortunately that was not to be. And finally, both Sam and Reese have complained about other drivers on the track when it comes to wheel-to-wheel racing. Sam and Reese both suffered front wing damage due to wheel-to-wheel combat and had to pit to make a change of their front wing. And both of the drivers feel like there is a lot that needs to be done to sort out the wheel-to-wheel racing on track, as it seems to be getting more and more out of control, according to the two of them. But that is it here for the Singapore Grand Prix. We have now had 3 winners in the first 3 races. We're now going to go and head off to the Bahrain International Circuit for the Bahrain Grand Prix, and we will see you guys then. Take care all. Peace.